What'd you think of Sam's performance last night?
I didn't like it. A little slow. He was a little slow. It looked like he might have mishandled his weight a little bit. He's got to get a lot better if he's going to help that team. So anyway, I wasn't too impressed with
Well,
him.
it's not. Yeah, sound like Joseph's trying to become a coach himself. I heard him yelling more than you.
Well, that's what Joseph forgot is I yelled the same thing at him. No, he's doing good. You know, he just that's a pretty good weight class, and he needs to make sure he's growing a little bit this season. So he's really kind of growing out of the weight, but
Okay.
it's too late to go up. So I think a little bit of that's him. It's good to see him grow. It looks like he's gotten about an inch taller since the beginning of October. Anyway, thanks for asking about my son.
Yeah. Well, turn into attention to this weekend, two dual trip up in Iowa. Obviously, you guys, although it's pandemic related, but in previous years, you guys have done something like this where you've had to travel, a pretty decent trip to wrestle twice in a day when you've done that Colorado, Wyoming trip. So, I mean, I'm sure for some of these guys that concept isn't going to be new to them.
No, it's not new. And believe it or not, I don't ever look at it necessarily as a disadvantage to us. We probably would like to have it, when we scheduled that, we wasn't thinking that we were going to be in a pandemic where we could only wrestle once a week, so, when we had to combine the two on the same day, it's just kind of hard for, one of those schools to say, hey, we don't want Oklahoma State. We're not going to go wrestle Oklahoma State at Iowa State, Northern Iowa, or Iowa State saying, hey, we're not going to wrestle Oklahoma State at Northern Iowa. So one of their highlight matches. And for that reason, we're going to wrestle at both places. And I don't look at it as a disadvantage. You warm up, you wrestle a match, you get on a sleeper bus, and you take a nap. It's no different than going back to a hotel, and you come back that night and wrestle another match, So we're getting ready to do that at the end of the season at Big 12 and the NCAA championship. So I think we're just trying to, do what we can to promote wrestling.
I know UNI has been a program, one of the Big 12 affiliates that's definitely benefited from joining the conference. What have you seen so far from these two programs this year?
Well, they're tough programs. I think they've had a little bit of issue with some injuries and some setbacks, some COVID issues. Looks like they got their full teams, so it'll be a struggle. I think Northern Iowa is as good as anyone in the conference, and they have been. Good coach, he's done a great job. There's no question that these meets on the road back to back 2 years in a row makes it a little bit different for us. But we wrestled Northern Iowa and Iowa State last year at Northern Iowa and Iowa State. So, going back there because of only getting to wrestle once a day, we just made a decision that we'll wrestle you both there again. That make any sense?
What's the status look like for Cade right now?
Cade who?
Brock.
Yeah. We'll discuss that probably a little bit more, address that a little bit more next week.
Okay.
Yeah. So he won't be traveling with us this weekend.
Okay. Now, we're going to have Jalin on here a little bit later. What have you seen from him and his reaction from responding from that? season opening loss to Chattanooga and come back with some wins, including against the top 20 ranked wrestler.
Well, I'm sure glad, I think maybe I said this last week, is that, I'm sure glad I didn't judge him on that Chattanooga match, where he got a lead and things kind of fell apart for him. And all of a sudden he's on his back and all of a sudden he's pinned, you like to see him fight back and you're expecting that. You get a couple opportunities and you want to see him fighting back, and it's just good to see him kind of fight his way back into, to a level of wrestling that he's probably hoped for. Like I've said, his seasons or his experience here has been rattled with some injuries, but it's been exciting to see him perform the last several weeks, and we're going to need him this weekend.
I know after that loss, you went with someone else at Oregon against the Oregon State duel. What made you say, I want to give Jalin another chance, another opportunity?
Oh, I think just the fact that, he's very, very loyal. He's very dedicated to what he's doing. He comes to practice. He's a guy that loves wrestling. You sure don't want to take that spirit from him. And the only way to take that is not to wrestle him, So I just knew that, you get pinned in your first match, you probably should sit and watch a match, those are things that, in every sport, that, hey, you need to watch something. You need to think about your experience in that first match and start changing some things in practice to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Thanks, John.
You bet.
Hey, Coach, something I've been meaning to ask you in the past few weeks. So just kind of of course, in other sports in general, COVID precautions are a given. Those are all taken. But I'm just interested, like in a sport like wrestling, contact is necessary. I mean, that's just the way the sport is. But what does that say about the wrestling culture and, just kind of the warrior mentality of wrestlers?
So what's your question?
Well, my question is, you have guys going out and, sweating, bleeding and, spitting on each other. But I mean, because that's what wrestling is, it's a tough sport. It's a tough man sport. There's no way around it. And, in basketball, you have the players social distance with the bench, but wrestling, I mean, that's what the sport is. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's definitely contact. I don't know if we spit. You said spitting. I don't think we. Yeah, it's the ultimate contact. We made a decision early on, since the NCAA declared us a high-risk sport. What can we do to help our student athletes wrestle in the conference in the NCAA championship? We moved it to 1 week, being able to wrestle once a week, multiple matches if so. We've been good for the last 6 weeks. We've in wrestling in general.
There we go.
In wrestling in general, we've had to experience a lot of things with the contact sport. A lot of maybe a different virus or infection and things like that. And I think for the most part, our immune system's pretty strong because throughout our lifetimes we've battled different things that you go through. So with that, I think, for us, the last several weeks, when I say several, I'm up to 7 weeks. We've been pretty good, without a positive. And we need to keep it like that. Now we got several student athletes that are getting ready to start retesting again. So it's real important that the month of February, you got to trust everyone. You got to trust your team that we're doing the right things. And we all know that anything can happen even when you're doing the right thing. So I'll just say that, that's what we do. We wrestle, and when you take that away from us, it's a hard experience for these guys.
And then kind of going back to what you said about Jalin, and then, just other guys that have battled injury. Wrestling is their life. It's what you guys are dedicated to. So, when with all these COVID protocols and, just I guess outside of wrestling, is it hard for them to do that or not? Because, they're so dedicated to wrestling that they're going to do whatever it takes.
Well, they are. You hope that they do whatever it takes because that's what they want to do is wrestle. So I wouldn't categorize wrestling as any more higher risk than any other than a few other sports.
Sure.
It is what it is, and I'll tell you that when the difference probably a little bit between wrestling and some other sports is the fact that it's hard to go in every day and you're working hard and you're losing 6 to 7 pounds and you're competing against really some really good people and then not getting a chance to wrestle on weekends is tough. So it's tough because we've been taking about 20 and 20 to 22 guys to these events and that's leaving 18 of them at home. Emotionally, motivation wise, it's tough on them. So you just respect those guys that aren't going, that keep coming back every day. And, by this time, most of those guys would have anywhere from 15 to 20 matches in and had been to 4 or 5 tournaments, open tournaments. That's not the case this year.
Thanks, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
John, hey, John, I wanted to ask you about Remember the 10. I have some wrestling questions, but you're part of the foundation of Oklahoma State University, one of the most, well-known people out of this university community. What does Remember the 10 mean to you?
Well, it's a tragic day for all of us. It was very emotional, tough deal. Coach Sutton's office is actually where I'm sitting right now, and my office was right down the hall from him. What I remember is how strong Coach Sutton was in pulling a lot of people through that. He really led the athletic department through that, and what he did and what he said, and I just remember kind of following his lead, just the words he said and what he said to the public and how we're going to remember these 10. You need a leadership during that time, and I think Coach Sutton gave it to us all.
Again, all right, getting back to wrestling, watched the extra matches last Friday night at Air Force. How much do those extra matches factor in versus what goes on in the week in the room as to who you might change out or how the lineup could change when you go on the road, say this weekend at Iowa?
Well, you just prepare them. Those extra matches are important. There's some of those, we have some of those guys that wrestled those extra matches are going to be starting this weekend. So having them is so important for us. I really believe we could possibly see a trend towards this in the future. Obviously you don't want to disrupt a dual meet and the hour and 45-minute slot that you have for that. You want to present that to your public. You know, people don't want to come for a 4-hour event or a 5-hour event, but it's sure nice to be able to get matches for in that kind of setting. That's a better setting than, let's say, we send guys to Fort Hays for a tournament. You know, picking up one match in that setting really can kind of helps you develop even more so, because you're competing against Division I in every match. So yeah, it's been real important, and it's allowed us to keep that top 20 guys ready to roll.
Last thing, I know you got the tournament coming up in Stillwater here in a few weeks that I think is going to be real exciting. You got Bedlam coming up, but is it fair to say these two duels coming up on Saturday in Iowa, especially since they're on the road, this could be the biggest single day challenge your team faces in the regular season?
Yes, probably. The challenge tournament, the two Bedlam matches, they're going to be very competitive, but going on the road, wrestling Northern Iowa and Iowa State this weekend is going to be the toughest thing that we've seen, toughest challenge that we've had since we started in early January. Both teams are competitive. They're on the road. Could have up to 3 freshmen, maybe 4 freshmen starting. So for that reason, yeah, it's you know, you got to win 6 matches to win dual meets, and in both matches, I see that being a challenge for us.
Coach, we kind of talked about Remember the 10 earlier. I went back and looked at the schedule, and I think you guys were making one of these Iowa trips whenever the plane crash happened.
Yeah.
Kind of what do you remember about that day, and kind of how did you find out? Cell phones obviously weren't as prevalent as they were today.
Yeah, I remember coming out of Northern Iowa, and we were scheduled to fly back in a private plane, and we ended up driving back. You know, I remember the SID from Northern Iowa came up to me and told me by that time your student athletes had heard about it as we were showering and preparing to leave. And we just made a decision that we were going to drive home. So we rented a couple vans and we drove back.
How did the news kind of, you mentioned the wrestlers had kind of found out about it. How did the news kind of circulate back then?
Well, it wasn't that far away, not that big of a difference than today. I don't think cell phones was, maybe they were around, I don't know. What year was that?
2001.
2001, right? Yeah, so, you know, maybe a few of them had cell phones, but I just remember that you know, the locker room, a couple of my student athletes at the time came and told me, and of course I had heard about it. Their SID had made me aware of it, and just a really tough time. You know, I think choosing to just rent a couple vans and drive home was probably just something that maybe felt like we needed to do. That's about it.
Do you remember the first time you guys flew after that? Was it kind of I don't know if big deal's the right word, but what was that like?
I don't think so. I don't remember. I really don't remember. You know, I just remember, not knowing, not knowing the results of what happened in the crash, and just trying to gather information just for your knowledge, driving back from Iowa that night.
And then last thing for me, I believe Wyatt wrestled in one of those extra matches. How's he kind of coming along?
He's come along pretty good. You know, he's maintained his workouts. He'll suit up again this weekend, and we'll. I was really impressed with his performance. He's done a nice job of being able to come back, and obviously he's definitely a guy we could use in the lineup. But it's been nice to see Harper slide in and take over the weight class and put some wins on the board for us.
Yeah, appreciate it, Coach.
John Marshall asked about Wyatt. I wanted to ask about Montalvo, Anthony Montalvo. How'd you feel he wrestled? And because of his versatility, where is he standing as far as when he might be able to help out with the regular lineup?
It's a good question, Robert. He's had a really about as tough as year as anyone I know. He battled through a couple of contacts where he became the primary contact in a couple situations, and in first semester, and then following a 14-day out of the room, out of practice, followed up with, unfortunately, a positive test that put him 10 days. So emotionally, he's had a really tough year, and he's just now slowly getting back. And he stayed here over Christmas and did what he could do. But in the end, remember, he's made the drop from 184 down to 174, so, you think about that in a weight class that he hadn't been at since his sophomore year, maybe his freshman year. It's a tough responsibility, and not being on the mat doesn't help, so I'll just tell you this, he's one of the toughest people I've ever been around. I mean, last week's match that he had wasn't a great match, but here he is making weight for the first time and wrestling in altitude, good effort, and probably something that he walked away from and realized that, okay, I'm finally getting some things back that I need. So, but I will say that it's been a long, hard struggle for him, and it's just good to see him have a spirit about what he's doing right now. Because the last month prior to Air Force match, it's been really rough on him.
John, you talked about the mental aspect for Taco during being sidelined due to all the tracing and whatnot. But what about just the family aspect of it as well? Because I know he's very close with his family, living half a country away, and being in the middle of a global pandemic and not being able to be close to someone like that when that does come back positive.
Say that once again. You broke up.
Just the mental aspect for Taco when he did get come back tested positive, and the fact that he wasn't close to home, because I know how close he is with his family, and having to, battle through coming back positive, and the mental aspect of just not having someone that, family and friends close enough to be there with him.
Where he was just mentally, we actually sent him home for a week. He went home for a week.
Okay.
After the holidays, before we started school. He returned that Monday of when school started. But we just felt like, and he felt like as well, that I need to go home. And we didn't really know at the time what was going on. We just knew that, for his health at the time and the struggles that he had, that, hey, go home, spend some time with your family and come back when you're ready. And it was about 1 week that he spent there and came back when school started. And it's just good to see him back with the team and have a match last week. Just kind of to let you know, man, I can do this. This is something I can do. I'm okay. Everything's going to be fine now. So, one of the struggles these guys have with being a primary contact, or even having a positive test for COVID, is, there's a worry about your condition at all times. You just grow up that way, and that responsibility of being able to wrestle 7 minutes and there's a constant worry about that. So, you know, what he had to go through, pretty impressive how he's come out of it. You know, it's definitely a will that we all ought to look at and respect.
Thanks.
I think you're good to go.
Mm.
I think you're good.
Okay, guys, thank you.
Thanks,
Hey,
Coach.
John.
Coach, you want your mask? Coach, your mask.
Keep a mask off.
You can take it off. And they'll just start asking questions.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, Jalin Harper's here. Y'all can go ahead and ask questions to him.
Hey, Jalin. Jason Oak was still our news press. How you doing?
Hey, pretty good. How about yourself?
Not too bad.
Good.
Well, not to rehash a bad memory right off the bat, but go back to that season opening match for you. What do you feel that you learned from that your first opportunity in a dual setting?
Yeah, that was a big match. It was my first chance to wrestle in Gallagher Arena, and that's pretty big, and that was a big moment for me. And I felt obviously a lot of nerves come into that, and I felt really good going into the match, and I felt like I cut my weight well, and I had managed my weight, and I came into that match pretty confident, and I knew that to get those nerves out of the way, I knew I got to sprint to get a quick takedown, get on top, and I'm usually pretty good on top, and I thought like my confidence just is build as I go, and I came out pretty good. I got a takedown. I rode him out. I think I had close to 2 minutes of riding time. And second period, I believe I went down. I know pretty well. Yeah, I went down and got out, and I got in on a shot and kind of got caught in a situation where I shouldn't have been. And rather than scramble out, I got turned and got caught, and that was pretty difficult. But in the end, I knew I felt like I was definitely the better wrestler, and it just didn't go my way that match, and I couldn't. There's a lot more matches to come, and I couldn't hang my head there, and I just knew I had to get back and get back to what I do. And when I'm doing what I do, I've had good luck.
John mentioned to us that he sat you for the Oregon State duel, saying that sometimes guys just need to digest that loss, and obviously for you being a pin, even more important.
Mhm.
But what was that? What was the digestion like for you when you had to sit and realize that you got one chance and you don't know it? I mean, because sometimes you don't know if that was the only chance.
Yeah, no, definitely, you're right. It was definitely it was pretty tough, but of course I understood. I mean, that was my chance, and I kind of blew it right there at the moment. But I knew if I kept up, kept doing what I do, doing and wrestling hard and working hard like I do, that another opportunity would present itself, and it did that next week. But yeah, definitely that next match, I actually got an extra match after I got pinned, and I think that was important too, because it was kind of a quick bounce back. It didn't in a normal season you get pinned in a duel, you have a whole week to think about that, and that's all on your mind. But I was able to get that extra match and kind of work through some things and get some takedowns and get a little bit more rhythm back going into the week.
Speaking of bouncing back the following weekend, you get a win over a top 20 ranked wrestler. What did that just do for your confidence after the first week?
It definitely boosted it, but always stay humble. I mean, I feel I'm wrestling at a level. I feel like even when I haven't been starting, I feel like I was always right there. I feel like I could compete with these guys. I was just not seeing them as much, and I battled injury in the past couple of years and haven't been on the mat as much. But getting that win definitely helped, and it helped me realize that yes, I am right there, and I can beat these guys.
Well, and how much has it pushed you? Also, the fact that we asked John about it, and I think you were in the room by then.
Yes.
The fact that there's a guy that's waiting to get his spot back,
Yes.
and you have to basically fight him off for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's just a part of the business here at Oklahoma State. It's definitely a tough atmosphere in the room, and everybody's competing for a spot day in and day out. And unfortunately, like I got an opportunity off an injury, which you never want to happen. And because we had wrestled early in the year, and he beat me, and And so it definitely was his spot. And I saw it as my chance to step up and like Coach said, fill in and do my job. And I think and fulfill my purpose, I guess, as to get as many, however long and whatever that looks like here in the future. But as far as I know, I'm just going to compete to my best ability.
Thanks, Jalin.
No problem. Thank you.
Hey, I was just going to ask Jalin. So this week, 157 State, you'll be going up against David Carr, who of course is the third ranked 157er according to Flow. It's a huge match from a Carr standpoint. What do you see in him?
David Carr, he's obviously a great wrestler, but for myself, looking at the match, I can gain a lot. I'm really excited if I get the opportunity to wrestle that match. I've been looking forward to it a lot, and I think going in, I can't really change much. I think I can't really worry about what he's going to do. I mean, I know he's a great offensive wrestler and scores from a lot of positions, but I think if I were to change how I go into the match, then that would just play out into his favor. So I think I have to come at him and try to do my stuff and do what works for me, and hopefully the outcome ends with me on top, and that's obviously my goal.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
No problem.
Hey, Jalin, we talked to Coach beforehand, and he kind of talked about how he sees this as maybe the most competitive single-day match that you guys are going to have against Northern Iowa and Iowa State. Do you agree with that?
Definitely. I think these next actually the next couple of weeks are very competitive for us. We have UNI and Iowa State, and that's at 157 in a lot of weights is a big match for us. And it's a chance for us to travel, and I believe we wrestle UNI at UNI and then travel to Iowa State. So that'll be a little different, and both in one days with the weigh-ins, and then we come back with Oklahoma, which is another very tough match, and Little Rock, and then that tournament where there's great matches. And yeah, it's a tough stretch, and I think it'll be good for us before we get into Big 12s and nationals to compete with those high level guys at week in, week out.
Thank you, Jalin.
Jalin, you obviously, kind of your first year in the lineup. What's it like? What are the differences for a guy kind of not in the lineup like last year, maybe the year before, compared to this year with you are in the lineup? Is the mindset any different? What's that like?
Yeah, the mindset's definitely different, but like you're always working hard as here at Oklahoma State. There's no chance to not do that. The coaches hold you to pretty high standard, and so you're always working hard. But definitely the way you go throughout the week and you carry yourself, your weight, you can't really take any shortcuts. You have to be on top of your weight. You have to be practicing to get better every day. Whereas you're drilling, you're different. You're looking for longevity, a lot more repetitions, and then maybe somebody that's not in the lineup that's there to like late in the season. I know I like last year in my freshman year, but my purpose was a little different because I was there for the start. I was there to push them, and obviously I'm there to push myself and to get better every day. But as a starter standpoint, they're getting most of the reps, and they're trying to get better to where they need to be for the end of the year, obviously. And so I'd say that's what.
Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Jalin? All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jalin.
Thanks, Reed. Thanks.
Thanks, Reed.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, Reed.